Hi, Henriette. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's absolutely wonderful to have you here. And you're also in Perth, are you? Yes?
I am indeed, yes.
And do you mind introducing yourself to our viewers, please, Henriette?
All right, so I'm Henriette. I recently moved to Perth about 2 years ago in August 2018. And yeah, I thought maybe, to just chat a little bit about my story because it's a little different I guess everyone's story is different. But yeah, I've been here for just under 2 years and absolutely love it. So I'm excited to share.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you feel like you've been here for a short period of time, or do you feel these 2 years have been like a long time that you've been in Perth for?
It's gone by so quickly. I think that everyone's experience is so different. But for me, it's literally one day it feels like I've been here for years, and other days I'm like, oh man, I just want to go home. I miss my family. So it just comes in like waves, peaks and waves.
Yeah. So you're alone. You came alone to Australia?
Yeah. So I immigrated alone, but I was very lucky because I have family here. So my sister lives here. So my sister and her husband moved here in 2011. And that's actually what made me want to come to Australia, because I came to visit them in 2012, I think it was, and absolutely fell in love with the place. And I just decided I'm going to make a plan to get here. Hell or high water. And I did try a few avenues like family sponsorship and stuff, but you can't get family sponsorship if you're not a last remaining relative, medically or financially dependent. And so that avenue wouldn't have worked. So I kind of left it for a while until a friend of mine decided to move over and had a farewell. And I was like, how are you farewelling to Australia? We studied the same thing, and I know we're not on the skills list because I studied finance, but accounting is on the skills list. And they saw my degree as the equivalent of an accounting degree. So yeah, I managed to then use an agency. That's how I came over. And with the point system, I came over on a 189 visa. And it was amazing. Like I came over in 2018, but I came over initially in 2016 to activate my visa. So I didn't come immediately.
Okay, so you had the visa and decided you wanted to stay a little bit longer in South Africa before you packed your bags, literally.
Yeah. I think that's the joy of a 189 visa. So that's one of the skills visas that gives you permanent residency the minute you essentially are allotted it. But then you have five years to actually make the move because you have a 5-year multi-entry visa. And I think that I thought, you know what, I wasn't ready just yet. You're never going to be ready. But after about a year and so passed, I had my affairs in order and I was like, it's now or never. And then I went.
And you left all your family, except obviously your sister who's here, but all the rest of your family is still in South Africa?
Yeah, everyone's still there. So I still have both my folks. My brother and my sister are all still in South Africa.
And don't they want to come over as well?
They do. My parents are on the list. So they've already lodged their application. Parent visa takes a while. There's obviously different streams, but they, I think it's about a 4 or 5 year wait list for that. But they're on that wait list already. So they've paid all of those thousands of dollars. So they're on that list. My other sister and her husband are also in the process of applying. So he's on the skilled list. So they're going through that route. And my brother, he's also interested, but he works on a game farm. So he's so tied to South Africa and the wildlife and that. But I think
tell him there's kangaroos over here. You can come to the kangaroo farm.
I know. I think that, like, I envision that the whole family will be reunited. I hope that that's what's going to happen. But coronavirus and everything's kind of thrown things out of whack. But
it has. But at least still, your parents are still on the waiting list, and time passes, and they're getting closer.
That's true. I think the sad thing is, though, that they came last year, or was it the year before? I think that they came. So I moved over in 2018 in August, and then they actually came for 3 months. To come and visit and stay. I was still staying with my sister. We were all staying together, and I actually still live above my sister. So she's got a home with a like a granny flat kind of thing at the top, and I rent that's from
awesome.
her. So I'm kind of away, but I'm still there. And then my parents were actually staying up here for the time, and it was just so nice because they kind of helped that transition, because I came over alone, and then about 3 months later, they came over for 3 months. So it was great.
That's great. And you came without a job, is
Yep.
that right?
Yeah.
Landed in Perth with your bags and went, okay, where do I start looking for a job? What
Yeah.
did you do? How did that work?
Well, funny enough, I never took a gap year. I never took any time off. I went straight from school to uni, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself to find something straight away. I've never had some time off. Let me get myself settled in. And that's kind of what I did. And I wasn't actively looking. And then a friend of my sister's was actually going on maternity leave, and she was looking for someone to fill her role temporarily. Now, her role was a little less what my skill set is, but I had experience in it before in recruitment. And I thought, I've done external consultancy before, I can do internal. So there's a nice overlap because the fundamentals stay the same. And yeah, I went for an interview there, and I got the job. It was just 3 days a week. So it was brilliant for the time because my parents were here and I didn't want to work full time while they were here. But then I was also starting to make Aussie dollars because your savings goes like that the minute you
Yes.
move here. So I
It
think,
sounds really cheap when you initially come because
yeah.
the numbers, the figures are smaller. But if you convert it to rands, it's like, whoa.
I think that was one of the things that completely, and to this day, it still confuses me because I guess I don't know how to say it, like the prices of things here are so different in terms of like their how far apart they are. Like for instance, in South Africa, a can of Coke is what, like 10 Rand, and then a dress is 100 Rand. Whereas here, like a can of Coke is like $5, but you can buy a dress for 10. It's
Yeah.
very confusing because
Yes.
those increments, because the Rand is so weak and the dollar is so strong, $1 is worth so much more, if that makes sense.
Yes, it is. It takes you some time to get used to the differences in prices, as you say, and also just looking at a different kind of figure because you're
Yeah.
expecting 3 digits often. Let's say if you want to buy a dress, as you said that example, but then
Yeah.
you see it in 2 digits here, and it's like, ooh, yeah, it doesn't really sink in
And
for
it
a while.
takes you a while to realize how, like you go, oh, it's just $20, but $20 is 200 Rand, like, so
Exactly.
you forget. You're like, oh, my groceries were just $80. You're like 800 Rand. So it does take a while to still do
Yeah.
that conversion. But I guess my work experience was, I was very lucky because I know a lot of people that come here and they struggle for a long time to find work. And I think that was the biggest, I guess, ruse of coming over here, because you hear stories of people finding a job within a week, and that's amazing, but it's not the case. It's
Not
tough
for
to find a
everybody.
job here. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was the maternity leave job. I assume you've moved on from that. So
Yeah.
what do you do at the moment?
So I work for a non-for-profit. Funny enough, I'm back at the place I started. So
Wow.
I did like a full kind of loop, but I went on to something else and I did some contract work. I find in Perth, it's really, especially if you're starting out, to take what you can get and get that Australian work experience. And even if it's contract work, even if it's for 3 months or 2 months and you're doing a mat leave cover or anything like that, like get your foot in the door. Because as cliche as it sounds, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And the minute you know someone there, you find kind of avenues. So I did contract work for 2 different companies. And then the company that I'm at now called me back and offered me the position because the same lady I covered for, she went on mat leave. So the first leave that she was actually on, just on holiday. So then I covered for her. And then I was actually tapped on the shoulder to do something completely different in the company. And then I was promoted, and yeah, kind of going on strong from there.
And happy and enjoying the Aussie way of work, the
I
culture
really
within
enjoy
the
it.
workplace.
Yeah, I think that Australians are different, and of course they are. It's a completely different culture, but for the most part, they share similarities with South Africans, like work banter and fun and work-life balance. But also, you don't want to stereotype and say South Africans are so hardworking, but I do find differences in our work ethics and just how we value, time. Like I don't clock watch. Not everybody does, but in my organization, I feel like a lot of the girls, the minute, it hits 4 o'clock, they're like, bye, and they leave. Whereas I'm still working if I've got things to do. So I think they
Yeah.
appreciate that here in Australia, and that's why they're always saying South Africans work so hard, because we do. We have to prove ourselves and start over.
Well, that's right. We come from a mindset you either work or you perish, basically.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit difference in Australia is the fact that social support is true and alive and well in Australia. So, as you know, going on the dole or Centrelink, as it's referred to here, if you don't get a job, then the government helps you out.
Oh yeah, and I
You
think a
obviously have to
Centrelink
show
payment
that you
is quite,
can't get a job, but it's quite
yeah.
a good payment.
Yeah, well, I saw that when I was working in recruitment, because we had a lot of applications. A lot of what a lot of people do here is they stay on Centrelink, and all that you have to do to actually stay on that grant is to show that you're actively applying for jobs. So I had a lot of things come in, and then you would call people and they're not interested, because it's
Yeah.
easier to kind of stay on that.
Yeah. So there are goods and bads for that system, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's true.
But the thing is, if you want to have a job, in my view, you'll be able to find something. What do you think? Do you find the
Oh
same?
yeah,
If you
I feel
want
like
to,
if
if you want to work, there will be something for you to do.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing to take from immigration, because especially if you immigrate later, if you're fresh in your career, it's different because you're building yourself up. But I think if you immigrate later in life, like I came over when I was 30, you've already kind of established yourself in your career, and it's a very humbling experience having to kind of go, well, I got to start over now, and it doesn't matter if you were the CEO of a listed company overseas. If they don't have Australian work experience on your CV, tough, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, it's very humbling, but you will definitely find a job if you are happy to take something that's maybe a cut below what you were used to, but you'll quickly rise up again. Like you'll
Absolutely.
quickly
Yeah.
to where you were before.
So what do you like the most about being in Australia?
You know, it's funny because you asked me that, I guess, in the other questions, and I thought about it, and there's so many things, so it's so difficult to kind of just pinpoint one thing. I've never lived by the ocean, so I come from Johannesburg, Pretoria, so I was always landlocked, and I've always wanted to live by the beach, and Perth has the most beautiful beaches and the most beautiful sunsets. So I make a habit of it, of going to the beach often and watching the sunsets or something like that. Like, so I really enjoy that. I enjoy the outdoor kind of quality of living, because you don't have that either really in Johannesburg. So I really enjoy that. But I was thinking about it last night when I was driving home, and one thing that, like, this nothing can prepare you for is that feeling of safety and freedom. Because I used to, as a young person, go out a lot in South Africa, but I'd always feel like I had a bit of anxiety at night because of driving home at night. You don't feel safe. Whereas here, I'll drive home at night with my window down, my bag next to me, like my handbag next to me. And it's the weirdest thing, because you just can't put like, without in words, or put a price tag on something like that.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that. I've been in Australia for 15 years now, I think.
Oh wow.
Came in 2005, so yeah, 15 years. And I still find myself, when I get into the car, when I put my bag on the seat next to me, I still find myself thinking, is that a good decision, yes or no? Should I rather put my bag down in the ground, either behind your legs or hide it somewhere for while I'm driving? And should I lock the doors, yes or no? I still keep thinking about it 15 years after. So in a way, it's not a bad thing, I guess, because you're always
No,
aware of your safety.
exactly.
But it does make me appreciate Australia every single day, because when I drive and when that happens, I think, thank goodness I don't have to worry about that.
Oh,
So
exactly. And I think that when I realized it was when I went back, because I went back once. So I've been here for just under 2 years, and I went back in June last year for a friend's wedding. And I went back to South Africa for about 3 weeks. And the minute the plane landed, all of a sudden this anxiety came back. And that is something that you don't realize you live with while you're there. I mean, I love South Africa and I will never badmouth it, but that kind of anxiety that you live with, and what you don't know doesn't hurt you. So if you don't know any different, then you think that's normal, but it's not. And I feel like that feeling of freedom should be a human right, that feeling that we have here. And you shouldn't become complacent. Nowhere is safe. mean, it's not like Australia doesn't have petty crime and stuff, but
Absolutely.
it's nothing to the point of South Africa in that regard. So I think that is the biggest thing for me, and that's the reason I left, because I wouldn't have left if I didn't feel I didn't want to live in constant fear, and that's the main reason I left South Africa.
Yeah. And do you miss South Africa, or what about South Africa do you miss the most?
Well, I guess the cliche answer is that my friends and my family. South Africa, in terms of like particulars, to be honest with you, I don't miss anything particularly about South Africa. I love the wildlife, so that would be amazing to go and see that again. But I feel like you said before, Australia has its own unique wildlife. It's just amazing that people that have birds as pets in South Africa, those birds fly free here. Like we see these beautiful, parrots and you know, I think that every place has some unique offerings. So I don't really miss South Africa. I really felt at home here the minute I landed, which was amazing. Because I know a lot of people struggle, but I haven't really had, I miss South Africa, but I miss my Mensa. That makes sense. I miss my people.
Well, your parents are still there in South Africa, and you still have very close family members there. So it in a way, the way I see it is, it doesn't really matter where you live, whether you lived in South Africa. If you moved from Pretoria to Cape Town and your folks were all in Pretoria, you were not going to see them every week anyway, you know. So it's very similar to being here. It's, you got to make an event of visiting them, and then when you're together, you really have quality time together. So in a way, whether you move from Pretoria to Cape Town or Pretoria to Perth, in a way it's very similar anyway. That's the way I feel about it.
100%.
And tell me, Henriette, when you moved over, obviously you had your sister and her circle of her network of people that she or they knew, but how did you make friends otherwise? Did you go out and venture to specific clubs or join the church, or how did you approach things?
That's a good question. So I actually didn't really fall in with any of my sister's friends, purely because my sister is at a completely different stage of her life. So she's got kids. She's got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So she's part of the mom club. And I think that if you come over as a parent, or if you come over with young kids, you do make friends quite quickly because you join mom groups and that kind of stuff. I was very fortunate, which again is why my case is so unique, because I had a lot of friends here already before I moved here. So I had a lot of friends that had moved here before me. I had a lot of friends that I met through other friends. So, you know, in South Africa, a friend of mine will be like, oh, I've got a friend that actually lives in Perth. You should chat to her. And I actually spoke to a number of people before I even moved here. And one of my really good friends here actually reached out to me on one of these Facebook groups. So I think it was like Aussie Corners or something like Sapphirs in Perth, or one of the Facebook groups. So I definitely would recommend joining as many of those as possible, because they really do help. I actually popped something on one of those groups just saying, like, out of interest, has anyone else done the move alone? Because I always see, you know, families coming over and that, but I haven't really seen anyone come over solo. And I was like, just out of interest, has anyone done it? And then a friend actually reached out, also a fellow South African, and she's like, no, but, you know, I came over with my family, but let me know when you land. I'll take you out for a coffee. And I mean, she's become one of my best friends here. So you really do find people from all walks of life. And it's not just South Africans. But yeah, I think that I was lucky. I had a lot of friends before I moved here. And then you make friends through work. So I've got friends from like the Netherlands. I've got friends from the US. I've got friends from all over because of work. And that's the nice thing about doing contract work as well, is you meet different people all over the show.
And it's very cosmopolitan here in Perth anyway. So there's a lot of South Africans. You can't think you're going to Skinner in the shops, because people do understand you everywhere. There's people from all over. There's a lot of Indian nationalities here, obviously a lot of Asian countries over here, and a lot of from the UK. How have you, because you're bilingual basically, let's say 100 or fully bilingual in both languages, how have you found adapting to the language here? Has it been interesting for you to understand some of the
the off-court things, the short,
Yeah,
they
the
shorten
abbreviations or
everything.
yeah, just the slang that they use.
Yeah, I think it's so similar to how South Africa has different dialects as well. So you get really like the really refined Australian accent, and then you get the very like unrefined. And I struggle still to understand some of them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to go, oh, sorry, slow down, I don't understand, and they're like, I don't understand you, and then I'm like, oh, I know I'm the one with the accent, but for the most part, I'm starting to pick up on the slang. I guess I've only been here for 2 years, but like little things in the beginning, I was like, what is arvo and bogan and all these weird things that they say, and I'm just, yeah, now I'm starting to pick it up. In my job, I speak to a lot of different cultures as well, because we work in community services and childcare. So we work also deep remote and regional Australia, where there's high Indigenous and Aboriginal populations. So you do struggle sometimes with the language, but for the most part, I feel like in Perth, you can speak English, you'll be fine. You know, if you don't understand what they're saying, they'll explain it to you. The big thing for me though was putting petrol in for the first time. Oh my gosh, that was a fail so bad. Like,
because you got to do it yourself.
You got to do it yourself. And I sat there at the pump and I didn't know like what angle to put it in. And eventually like the person like called me out on the speaker and they were like, listen,
Are you struggling?
what are you doing? Yeah. And then they helped me. But I think that that's the thing. It's like you come over here and we're so fortunate in South Africa. Everything's done for us. Even our windows are washed. Here you got to get out your own car, wash your own window, put your own pressure in your tires. Yeah.
Very, very different in that setup. And also things like ordering at the
restaurant.
The restaurant. So you got to walk up and order there. You don't always have people to come and serve you.
Most of the time it's not table service, and that was also a big fail when I first moved here, as I sat at a table probably for about 20 minutes and I was like,
bad service.
Hello, what is up with this? And then eventually someone came up to me, they're like, have you ordered something? I'm like, no, where's the waitress? It's not table service, you got to go to the counter, and then they give you a little number, and then so it's very, I quite like it though. I prefer it because that way when you're done with your meal you can go. You don't have to worry about paying a bill
or tip anybody, because tipping in Australia is not the norm.
Yeah,
it's the exception. You can tip if you want. Some places have like a tip jar when you go to pay, but generally speaking, you pay whatever the meal is worth, what it costs. I say is worth. And tell me, what if there's one thing that you can change about being in Australia, or things that you find difficult or that you've struggled with?
Oh man, I struggle so much because I have a need for speed, and they drive very slow here because you have to. So, and also I find that it changes so often that it's so quick to get not a speeding fine, but you know, if you're not careful and vigilant, it changes from 40 to 60, then back to 70, then and I guess the fact that you can only drive like max 100, and this is now if you're going into the country, and it's like 80 on most of the roads. I think I struggle a bit with that because I feel and I guess everyone will complain about this in Perth, but merging, the worst. They just don't understand, like, and the thing is Aussies make fun of it as well, like they even have advertisements on the TV to teach people how to merge. They don't know how to do that here. It's the funniest thing. They merge in the beginning, so like we as South Africans know that a road runs parallel to another road so that there's the flow, and then here in Australia they merge in the beginning, and then it becomes like a bottleneck because then everybody just wants to get in the beginning. So I find that quite frustrating. But I think, I really wouldn't change anything. I think customer service here is amazing. I think quality of life is amazing. I think that it's that whole concept of how you perceive things, because everybody has a different experience, and some people think it's shocking. But I think maybe I'm still too pure in my immigration journey that I still look at everything in awe, and I'm still very blessed
I think
to be
2
here.
years has been a long enough time for you to it gives you a good idea of how things work. They say you got to wait at least 2 years usually before you go back to South Africa for the first time. That was some of the advice that we were given, but some people go.
Is it just
back
so that you don't get homesick?
I
That
think
works
so.
best.
So that because 2 years gives you an opportunity to properly settle in and find
Yeah.
your feet. So if you go back before 2 years, you're still too homesick and you're like, oh, I missed this and I missed that. But once you've been here for 2 years, you've learned how things work and you understand it and you've gotten used to a lot of the things here. So that when you go back after 2 years, you realize, oh no, but there's actually a good reason for why things are like that in Australia. And I prefer it that way potentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was what I heard. So I went back probably a couple, 2 or 3 times in the beginning, and then I didn't go back for 7 years in
Wow.
between, just because there's so many other places that we wanted to explore as well
Yeah.
in the world. And just if you use all your leave up to go to South Africa and all your money, because it's expensive to go back to South
So
Africa,
expensive
then you
to
end up
fly
not
back. Yeah.
doing any other holidays. And in a way, we found it not a holiday to go to South Africa, because you've
No,
got
it's not.
this person and that one and that one and that one, and you've got all these people you have to go and visit, and you'd like to see them, but people don't make a point of coming to see you in one spot in South Africa. You have to go
Yeah.
and visit them everywhere where they are, and that is a big task because they're not all in the same town either.
Oh yeah.
Your family, we have family all over South Africa, in the Northern Cape, and there's people I want to visit in Cape Town and in Durban and in
Oh
Transvaal. And
geez, and you got to track
so
the whole
yeah,
country.
so it's a big thing if we go back and you don't want to not see some people. So it becomes a bit of a mission, like you got to like work it out very
It makes more sense
finely.
though for people to come visit you, because if you think about it,
Yes.
you've lived in South Africa. So yes, it's great for you to go because then you can see multiple people.
Yeah.
But you've lived there your whole life.
Mm.
Like, why don't people come and visit you? And then you can kind of explore, or go to Bali. Bali's so cheap, meet there. And
Yeah, so that's what we've done with some of our friends, and then both couples or both families are on holiday.
exactly, yeah. And I mean, that's the nice thing is Bali is so cheap, Indonesia, all those areas
Mm.
here. And it's for us, it's so much faster to fly there than to fly to South Africa, which is
Yeah.
like 9 hours or 11 hours back. So yeah, I mean, I go back obviously for weddings and big events, but like you said, it's not a holiday.
Yeah. And if you had a piece of advice for some of those South Africans who are interested in coming over to Australia, what would you say to them?
I would most likely say that it's never going to be easy, but there's merit in things that aren't easy. Like if it's too easy, it's not worth it. Like there's a reason for the wait. There's a reason why things take time. I was lucky that my visa came quite quickly, but people sometimes have to wait long for that. But like, don't dismiss the wait, enjoy the process, make the most of while you're still in South Africa, because the minute you move over, you are going to miss a lot about it. I know that a lot of people in their immigration journey are so desperate to get over, they become like hurtful for the wait. They're just like, oh my gosh. But, once you're here, there's a lot that you're going to miss about being there. So just enjoy it. And also, like, where there's a will, there's a way. Really, like if you make a decision to get here, you'll find a way.
Absolutely.
Through a skills list, or there will be a way to get here.
Yeah.
Don't lose hope.
Yes, don't lose hope, even with Corona hanging around.
Yes, Corona has kind
That
of
too
put a
shall
damper on
pass.
things. I hope so. I have to go back to South Africa next year, and I'm just like, I don't know if the borders are going to open. I've got another wedding, friend's wedding, and who knows?
Yes, it's a wait and see game for everybody. Have
I
they
think we're
considered doing an
very
online wedding? Because then you can watch it by Zoom. It's not the same, I
No,
know.
but funny enough is I'm already invited to a few online baby showers. So it's quite nice coronavirus in the sense that
Oh,
I'm involved in baby showers and things now that I wouldn't have been able to join
that's
because
interesting.
they would have been
Local,
like,
as in Australia or South
no,
African
like
ones?
South Africa.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So I've
cool.
got friends that are having babies and then they're having like a baby Zoom shower. And at least now I get to be part of it because I guess
Yes.
they still can't gather there. I think that we are definitely the envy of the world in WA. We are so confined and away from everything that we're basically back to normal with this corona situation. So
Yes, that's right. I
yeah,
think it's basically only just the borders that still need to open up, and then it's as normal as it can be for us.
but I love our premier. I think Mark is the best thing ever. So
Doing a good job.
He's doing such a good job.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you so much for having a chat with us.
It's a
It's
pleasure.
been really lovely to hear your story, and it's great to see that there are still people who are prepared to come alone to Australia, like a new country that you've never lived in before, and you basically just took everything and said, I'm going to make this work, and came across. It's heartwarming to hear good
No,
stories
thank
like
you.
yours.
Yeah,
So thank you
that's
for having a
amazing.
chat with us, Henriette. Appreciate it. Any last parting thoughts that you want to leave our viewers with?
No, I think just good luck. You know, life's a journey, so just keep on keeping on, and you will eventually get to where you need to be. And you know, come to Perth. Perth is the best. I don't want to dismiss the rest, but Perth is the best.
It is a lovely place. I agree with you. Gotta agree.
It's got the best weather, best beaches. We might not have, like, you know, the financial hub like the Sydney and Melbourne, but Perth is really an awesome place to, I think,
Yeah,
raise a family.
it is beautiful. Thanks again. Appreciate your time,
Awesome.
and
It's a
have a lovely
pleasure.
weekend.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank
Bye.
you. Goodbye.
Bye.